5 success factors to improve the customer experience. Many of us have been around a while, and we've seen the evolution of enabling quality to drive business results by satisfying the customers better. And we used to say, get rid of the customer dissatisfaction and they'll be happy. Then focus on customer satisfaction and they're happier. And now we think about it as the customer experience. In other words, moving beyond just how good they are or happy they are with the product or service we deliver to the entire experience working with the organization. And I will point out some recent experiences I've had that have demonstrated to me that focusing on a broader understanding of customer requirements, customer needs, may benefit you in the long run. Today we have a couple additional clips we're going to show, a couple video clips, so we hope that works. It's the first time we're using some quality minutes in our presentation. And let's begin. Most of you all have heard the expression, the customer is always right. But lately it seems that organizations have lost some touch with the customers and that they have been trying to minimize the importance of certain, I call them hygiene factors. For instance, we tend to call customer call centers, and some organizations feel the call center is just a place that can satisfy a customer need in the quickest possible way. But in fact, we call call centers today, we find that they don't answer right away, they're too slow, they're running a script, and the customer gets upset with it. So you have a good feature of a call center, but the bad thing is the customer is not happy with that experience. And that experience with your call center may cause them to talk badly about you, may cause them to leave you, may cause them to complain more. So the old adage, the customer is always right, is still in vogue, particularly from us as customers, whether the organizations you work for or agencies you work for believe it, it's still very critical. Now, most recently, and what's driving our discussion today, some interesting surveys that were done, Avea and BT Research being one. 82% of consumers will buy more from companies that make it easier to do business with them, from simply as finding parking access to walking in a store to getting what they want to having courteous service or dealing with an online web company, not just having a web access, but also being able to contact those people and talk to them. 70% are willing to spend more money if they provide good customer service. If you think about it, you tip more when you have great service in a restaurant. 15% that would spend 20% more with companies with good service, meaning I'll even spend more time with you. Very interesting points. Now, in contrast, if an organization doesn't understand its customers or delivers unsatisfactory experience, why would the customers buy more? 26% weren't getting what they need first time they contact the customer's call center or service center. 36% were considered defecting after only one or two attempts to resolve a query. 27% indicated they were likely to or had already moved their business as a result of their interaction. And 44% regarded customer loyalty as a relic of the past, meaning in the past, an organization would try to buy our loyalty. If you think about, for those of you who travel a lot, airline loyalty programs, they used to give us mileage for flying. They gave us perks for flying. We could get business class access, upgrades in first class. Now, myself, I find that those loyalty programs are not loyalty programs at all. It's very difficult to get an upgrade. It's very difficult to get treated very nicely. So when you talk about customer loyalty, the customer might think of the same way they think about customer satisfaction. But if you think about it in terms of the customer experience, then they might be thinking differently. Customer experience, if you're a customer, as you are in many places, it's the entire experience from the point of which you think of making a purchase to the point of actually completing that purchase, and even after the sale, managing the interaction between that purchase and the organization. And the broader we think about it, the more we think about the customer experience and how we can help manage that experience and improve our business. A number of years ago, a few of the airlines started to realize that the airline service did not begin when you boarded the plane and left the plane. It didn't begin when you walked into the gate and waited for the board to plane, and it didn't begin when you walked into the airport. They realized it began at your home when you purchased the ticket, or in your office when you purchased the ticket. And then when you had the day of travel, had to go from your home to the airport. Some offered concierge service, some offered ease of access. So when we think of the customer experience, we have to think broader than the product or service interaction we have. I saw a very cute cartoon here as to why the customer experience management is important. Well, the bad news is that customers hate us. The good news, we have a lot fewer customers than we used to. So many of us defect very fast when we have a negative experience. The negative experience could be unrelated to the product we purchase or use. So if we're a consumer looking at a consumer purchase, as I recently purchased a kitchen, the product, that kitchen, was great, but the experience with the organization that I purchased from and the interactions with them were horrible. So my experience with that organization led me to say I may never want to buy from them again at that level. So you will have fewer customers. And this shift, and you probably think about it yourself, this shift in customer service has been going on for a while. We have changing demographics. We have different forms of technologies, communication, and so there are more ways a customer experiences or interacts with your organization than they ever did before. For instance, before I even walk in the door to buy a kitchen, I might be looking at kitchen manufacturers, people who make cabinets. I might be looking at companies that make appliances. I may be looking at people who do floors or ceramic tile. And so I have all these different places for me to do that. So what's changing is that we have a lot of options, and all these interactions can create an impression on us. And what it ends up doing is actually produces some negative economic impact, but creates more competitive pressure, because the more your organization understands all the touch points in that relationship, the better off you're going to be in delivering that customer experience. We can use the term customer experience management, as some retail outlets use, to think about the cycle or supply chain or value chain from the contact center to the entire customer care delivery of product or service. Someone asked if I am in the United States. The answer is yes, I am. And there is a phone number you could dial in if you're having trouble hearing me. Can I see a show of hands? Do any of your organizations use the term customer experience management, or use the words customer experience when talking about moving beyond the traditional customer? Okay, I see a few folks here. Well, I hope in today's presentation you might get a better reason, or maybe become more convincing, that we need to think a little broader. And we're going to talk about 5 key success factors in doing that. The concept of customers always right. And if you think about it, if you really love your customers, you probably don't have some of the problems that all of us face when we have interactions with customers and suppliers, but in reality, we're always going to have some kind of issue. Customer experience management is a way of thinking that gets you to not just look at the supply chain like we used to, where a raw material comes in and we follow it through our organization and it goes out, or information flows through our organization. What we're looking at is the actual interaction between the customer relationship and our company. If we think of the customer as an asset, just like we do raw material or our employees or equipment, we might treat them better, because a customer, like our equipment, like our employees, has good days and bad days. They have different needs, different wants. They have different economic situations. They're in different countries, different places. So what you want to think about is, how can we better understand those customer relationships, those interactions, those transactions, and balance their needs with our needs? I've always heard people say, well, the more we give the customer, the less money we make. It's actually the more we give the customers what they need to feel and get, the better off we're going to be. But if we keep thinking we know what the customer wants, we may never be providing them exactly what they want. A number of years ago, we always focused on surveying customers and finding out what they said. And then we went into trying to better understand that by observing what they do. And now we have to actually follow them. We have to follow the customer through our entire value chain. But if you practice at customer experience management and take your operational excellence program, your Lean Six Sigma program, and when you're looking for projects, look for projects that can enhance the customer experience. It delivers much better experience for the customer. They feel valued, and they become loyal for life, or more loyal than they were. And positive word of mouth happens, and positive word of mouth is where we get a lot of our additional sales from. Also, it's always believed that it's much cheaper to keep an old customer than it is to find a new one. Now, for the business, we could, by balancing the organization's needs with the customer needs, we could improve the customer lifetime value, or if we think about how much money they will spend over a lifetime in our organization. So we could get improved revenue, improved margins throughout the customer's life cycle, and if we can keep that customer coming. Even hospitals in the United States today, if you went to a hospital, it was assumed that you went to a hospital, you were born, you left. When you got sick, you came back. If you were a mom and dad and you had children, you came back for your pregnancy. But the hospital never looked at you as a continuum, that you're a patient in my region, and I should nurture you to keep coming to me over your entire life's needs. And that isn't not only when you're sick, but also when you're healthy and staying healthy. And so a lot of hospitals now are thinking about following the patron or patient from the time they are born through their entire life cycle, and what are the interactions that happen. And they build loyalty, they build much better relationships between doctors and patients, and that leads to better care. And now, in the United States, where they're managing populations and the health of populations, that's going to be a critical factor. Now, success factor one we talk about is, first of all, anticipating customer needs. Most organizations make products, deliver services, and they really have two things they can think about when it comes to satisfying customers. They could always try to provide the most competitive price, even lowering price or giving discounts. And that does build loyalty, but it also reduces your margins and reduces your costs and leaves you less money to deal with. There are other organizations that look at trying to increase value by keeping the same price but giving you a little bit more for very little less. And you're only going to do that if you can understand truly and anticipate the customer needs that you're dealing with. Dr. Kano from Japan created the Kano model, and you might think of the features of a product or a service that delight the customers. That extra feature may not have cost us anything. It may came as the benefit to something else. And in turn, we received it and we're much happier. So our first success factor is learning how to anticipate customer needs. And if we don't, things happen. And I'd like to take a pause and show you a little video here of what could happen if you don't really understand customer needs. This is an oldie but goodie. It's our old
When designing quality into products and services, you need to understand what it is that your customers really want. Skipping that vital step could drive your quality efforts way off course, as we see in this Quality Minute.
Don't ever assume that you know what your customers want. Ask them. The Oregon State Department of Motor Vehicles got a big surprise when they asked their customers what was really important to them.
They assumed that people wanted, more than anything else, shorter waiting lines. And so they planned to add clerks and automate the process. And then, luckily, before they implemented their plan, they asked their customers what was most important to them. The number one complaint by a wide margin the unflattering pictures. Has anybody here got a driver's license with a picture of themselves on it that they hate? Well, when you stop to think about it, people only had to wait in line every 5 years, but they were intensely aggravated every time they had to show someone this terrible picture on their license. So now Oregon uses a video system that you select the best of a whole variety of pictures.
And that's good service from a customer point of view.
License?
I'm Howland Blackiston of Juran Institute.
Hi there. So I love the ex-Vice President Al Gore and those wonderful big computer screens. But you get the point here. If we don't understand what they want, then we might give them something they don't want, costs us money. So we don't get much value out of that, neither does the customer. So by a show of hands, how many of you think your organizations create unnecessary features and services for the customer because they truly don't understand what the customer really is looking for? Good. A lot of folks. Now, when we think about price versus value and trying to anticipate customer needs, it means you have an established, proactive understanding of your marketplace, not periodic, because our needs change so much. In our Quality by Design chapters in our Juran Handbook or the Quality Essentials book, we try to understand that you can create a steering team that meets periodically throughout the year, but continuously, and monitors changes in customer behavior and customer habits. Historically, a market research group used to do that, but what you really want to have is, if let's say you're a retail store or a public agency like motor vehicles, when you get together in meetings or periodic meetings, have one devoted to, what is changing? What is the customer talking about? What are they thinking about? Follow them through the store. Try to go online and see what they're doing, how they're doing it. So what we're trying to do is understand every touch point, every moment of truth when a customer interacts with our organization or parts of our organization and forms that impression, whether it's good or bad. We spend a lot of time trying to understand what's going to make our customers or people who are not our customers like our website, like us, like our products, like our services. And in some cases, we can observe how long they stay on our website, how often they come back to it. And it tells us some information. And we know the longer they stay, either the harder they tried to find something or didn't find it, or they're staying and enjoying themselves. But we're trying to find the touch point. So the website's a touch point. They might be on a social media site like Facebook. There's places called Glass Ceiling, other places where they might get that moment of truth. My experience recently with that kitchen was contacting the contact center, and it was a horrible, horrible experience. And I immediately asked for the manager, and I got another horrible experience. And finally, the third person gave me a great experience, and I asked the same question of all three. We know that positive interactions drive positive customer satisfaction, loyalty, and lifetime value. You see it yourself. It's much cheaper and easier to keep a customer happy than it is to give them a new one. That said, there are a lot of organizations that don't understand that and therefore don't really abide by the customer being always right, and we're left with dealing with rework, dealing with more complaints later on. Second success factor is understand the customer's perspective. Now, that's different than understanding their needs. Understanding the needs is simpler. This is harder. Have you ever tried to do business with your own company? I'm sure you said, boy, I don't know how our customers can like working with us. For instance, we might have very streamlined order fulfillment and payment processes, but did anybody ever ask the customer, do they want that and do they like it? Another big push in American hospitals is to give access to patient records, and that's a good thing. But a lot of patients who go to hospitals don't have computers, don't have access to patient records. And so the answer is, well, we'll let them look at the computer when they come to the hospital. Well, what's the point of that? So we tend to create things, but may not really fulfill or make it what the customer perceives. What's it like to shop in one of your company stores? Or what is it like to call your company after hours? What is it like to be a supplier in your company and be on the receiving end of late payments? One example here, this supermarket had thought, well, let's give them bigger carts because they'll fill up like a food plate. The bigger the plate, the more food you put on it. The bigger the cart, the more they fill it because it looks empty. When in fact, did anybody ask if people can push those carts around when they're full? So when we think about the customer's perspective, the best way to do it is to follow them. Follow them by literally not attacking them or trying to sell things. There are a couple of very big chains in the United States that seem to attack you when you get to the door. And they really want to sell you, are you interested in a new solar roof? Are you interested in a new this? And the answer is, let me get in the door and let me ask you what I'm interested in. Now, someone told those folks that's a good sales tip. But you know what I'd like? When I can't find something, I'd like to be able to ask someone where it is and find out where it is. And if I really want to buy something that I did not come into, maybe catch me on the way out, but not on the way in. I'm in there for a reason. Understand the customer perspective. The third one is understand and establish a customer mindset. So this is the internal culture. Customer experience management means we look at our customer as an asset, and therefore we got to teach ourselves that they are an asset. And an asset means it's valuable to us. So a piece of equipment in a manufacturing site is valuable because it makes our parts. If we don't keep it running and do maintenance on it, it will break down and make bad parts. An asset in our service off our insurance company or bank are the people that work there, how they interact with the customer, the software we use. So we want to keep that alive and healthy. And we know that, obviously people who deal with customers, like salespeople, customer service people, they are obviously have some level of customer understanding. But we're talking about everyone else. So that if you're an IT software developer, you don't just create IT software from a technology point of view. You actually try to understand how do people use this? What could go wrong with it? We perform design FMEAs, failure mode effect analysis, after we come up with it. We get customers to try it. How many times do you buy a product and you can't fix it, can't assemble it? And lately, I'm buying products that I can't read the instructions because the print is so small, I have to get huge magnifying glasses. So what we're trying to create is employees becoming agents to the customer, employees embracing that concept that let's understand what our customer goes through when they experience this. And then take that information and make it projects, make it improvement areas. So you don't just create a new customer experience management program, dish your operational excellence. You say this is another way to be able to identify projects that are meaningful to the business. So they all should become part of your company-wide program. The fourth one is follow the customer. So if we think about the first ones, it's really embracing that customer is right. It's trying to understand what they want. It is trying to observe their behavior. But can you follow the customer from beginning to end? So let's talk about that. Can you identify, when we do a flow chart, we typically look at the major tasks that we have to carry out to deliver a process, good or output. In following the customer, what we're looking for is where are all the touch points that customer interacts with us, whether it is on the web, whether it is in parking lots, whether it is on television, radio, satellite radio. Where are all the points, and what does it look like? This is one example coming from that Avea study that what a customer goes through. They go through I know I want something. I either go out and select it because I know it's there, or I do some research, then I select it, and then I buy it. And that experience, then moving from buying it to going home and using it, then contacting for support, or I brag about it, or I complain about it. That cycle keeps going around. Well, if you think about following the customer in your business, and it doesn't have to be a retail business, but finding the starting point and end point. So here we have multiple interactions. Let's follow a customer. So, we as customers have a need. Now, if we're a traditional business customer and supplier, we may never know who the ultimate user is. We might get engineering drawings, or we might get specifications, or we might just get told this is what the customer wants from some research group. But what this means is actually talking and interacting with a face-to-face person in persons and finding out what they need. One of the first things they tend to do is they ask their friends. They ask their family. Hey, I want to buy a new automobile. I want to find a good doctor. I want to find a great mortgage company. They ask. Second place they go is to the internet. They Google. They want to know something more than they have. From there, they might select a store, or they might select a product. And as they move through the organization, as they move through their own supply chain, these touch points, these interactions, these places where they purchase, these all become positive or negative experiences. And I don't have data that says, how many times you have to upset a customer or how many times you have to delight them where they become loyal. But it becomes another source of trying to understand how to improve business performance by satisfying customers. So many times we hear people talk about we have to fix the back office, we have to fix the supply chain, we have to fix our purchasing function. And I'm not hearing a lot about let's go after what the customer wants. Let's try to make it easier for the customer to buy our products. And some stores and some retail and even some online businesses don't make it very easy. And so follow the customer, understand their interactions. One study that I noticed talked about one of the biggest complaints customers have, and the type of customer was a more savvy, web-based customer. And they love filling out forms online, but they can't stand when they ask for redundant information. So, for instance, when I made the call to my company for the kitchen issue, the first thing they asked me is, can I have your name? Yes. And your telephone? Yes. And they said, well, let me forward you to someone else. And they asked me the same questions. And the third person asked me the same questions. And after a while, you say, why do you keep asking me the same questions? Well, they are in different businesses. They're not interconnected. The first person didn't pass that information along. So we know that redundant activity, redundant tasks in a business are bad, while redundant questions for a customer or filling in screens is something they don't like either. That's why a lot of our online browsers automatically fill information in for us. We hate putting down our birth date so many times. And by the way, the older you get, the more you hate it, because you find that when you have a drop-down menu of years of the dates, us folks born in the 50s got to go really far down that scroll to find where we are. Follow the customer. If you follow the customer, you might find something new. We follow the product in a company to find out where it could be the non-value added and value added. We can follow a patient through a hospital, but go beyond that. Let's follow a patient from their doctor's office to when they leave the hospital and what they do when they're at home. Let's follow a shipment around the country to see where it goes and how many interactions it has. So success factor 4, follow the customer. Now, in terms of how to make your customer experience happen, no need to add a new program. What you need to add is make sure that you, first of all, may have to reorient your OpEx program, because so many of these Lean Six Sigma OpEx programs are focused on cost reduction. And that's okay if cost reduction is coming at the benefit of a customer, not at the benefit of just the business. And early on I talked about how we need to balance that balance between the customer need and the business need. Lately it's been kind of lopsided or imbalanced. So 1, use your current program. 2, set customer experience goals. I know we tend to set cycle time goals. You have defect goals. You have loyalty goals. But how about a customer experience goal? In other words, we want to have projects based on improving the customer experience, and that should show up in the existing scores we get. But the issues that we can work on can come from those customer experience value chains. So let's go find out what they are. So we could pick projects that would lead to improving that. Now, there are some metrics that people might have in their organization. Instead of asking, were you satisfied with your visit, is can you tell us what you liked or disliked about the experience you had? And then you might draw a picture of a supply chain and say, how was it when you contacted us? How was it when you were greeted at the door? Did you find parking easily? So you're asking questions that are important to the customer. Now, the next step with projects is one of the tools we use is value stream mapping to map tasks so that we know how to carry out a task. Well, we're essentially doing that same thing, but we're trying to map the customer interactions in moments of truth. And unlike a value stream map, when we put down steps and they each have some cycle time associated with it, what we're looking for here is what obstacle does that potential interaction create for that customer? What delight could a good experience have at that point create for them? So we can use the value stream mapping to identify positive and negative interactions. Now, obviously, the negative ones are really important to us. We want to make sure that we focus on those. Now, once we find a cause, meaning this is an interaction, we can make some changes. We could design a new means of interaction. For instance, if we find that, when you go to a website and you're trying to get information off that website, we did this ourselves. The lay of the land was ask for their name, address, serial number, the date of birth, their family's history, everything. And by the time we filled this thing out, he said, man, I don't really want that. Now we simply say, give me your email address, and then we'll give it to you. So that didn't require a lot of analysis. It just said customers didn't like all those fields, so let's get rid of them. So some of the changes could actually happen very quickly. Now, let me tell you a story of this experience that I just had. We're going to buy a kitchen cabinet. We did some research. We decided where to go. We went to that place. We parked. We went in. We searched our way through the organization store. We found where they sell kitchens. The place was not very organized, although the kitchen cabinets looked great, but the place where you actually had to deal with a salesperson or a designer. And by the way, I was already designing it on my own because they had an online design program. But when I found out that program won't transfer to the store program, so they have to start over. And so each one of these interactions, so the first day was, oh, great, nice to meet you. A few weeks later, we go back. We've got some new decisions. And then we decide to make a purchase. And after a few interactions, we decided what to purchase. We were given some discounts. And then we were escorted up to the front of the store. In the front of the store, they basically said, okay, we want you to input this. And when I was done, this is unbelievable. I got about a 5-meter, 3-inch wide receipt with every item purchased, whether it was a knob, a door, a hinge, a piece of wood, everything. And I couldn't even understand if I got the discount or not. And then I opened up a credit card so I'd get an additional input. And after 2 hours of trying to check out, I finally left. Well, then the good thing is that a few weeks later, the cabinets show up, 100% right, nope, missing parts. So it's not done yet, but the interactions have demonstrated this experience was painful, and it doesn't have to be. And then I started to think, how many other people, maybe not as savvy as I am about kitchens, because I used to build cabinets, get either suckered into buying things they don't want, pay more than they have to, or worse, for your business, they leave. They don't come back. And I felt it was millions and millions and millions of dollars. And yet, they want to sell me a solar panel or a new generator when I want to buy a kitchen. That's a heck of a lot more money than both of those combined. So use OpEx, drive out negative interactions. Now, these 5 success factors may be a different orientation than what you may be used to with your current program. But if you don't start refocusing on customer needs, someone else will. Apple created iTunes, not the record industry. The record industry, in the words of an executive, I believe they used to generate some $27 billion in a given period of time on record sales. In that same period of time, they're only generating $6 billion now. Where the other ones go, it's shifted. So if your industry doesn't create it, maybe another industry is. I'd like to pause and show you another oldie but goodie, a video from a museum of failed products, and see if your products might fit into this category. And then I'll come back and we'll wrap up in a couple minutes.
The philosopher George Santayana once observed that those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In this Quality Minute, we visit a museum that houses a myriad of mistakes from the past.
Museums like this one help us learn by allowing us to study what others have done in the past. In Ithaca, New York, Bob McMath has assembled a museum of sorts. It's a showcase of quality disasters. There you'll find thousands of products that somewhere in their history took a wrong turn.
This is Short and Sassy, was a very interesting product by Clairol. During the time that they started to work on the product, the hairstyles went from short to long. Charcoal eggplant toothpaste is a black toothpaste. Has no interest whatsoever for any American I've ever talked to. It is a virucidal tissue. Now, in the first place, the name virucidal scares the consumer to death. They don't understand what virucidal is. Wine and dine is an idea of sitting down, eating, and drinking a glass of wine. The unfortunate problem is this is cooking wine.
Bob McMath's collection is visited regularly by marketers and product designers who study these past disasters to avoid similar catastrophes in the future.
You have to see what has been done in the past. You have to try to realize that if you don't know what's happened in the past, you may be doomed to failure.
This so-called Santayana review, or learning from the lessons of the past, can be widely used to improve the quality of products and services, to ensure that they wind up here in the marketplace and not in a museum of quality disasters. I'm Howlin' Blood.
Well, if you're like me, some of you did not get to see that video, so let me tell you what it's about. So there's a museum in upstate New York called the Museum of Failed Products. And these are products that were really designed with customer needs in mind. For instance, a black licorice toothpaste, the ideal thing that a parent would love to see their children use, so that instead of white teeth, they get nice dark black licorice teeth. Or a product called Short and Sassy, which was a product for short haircuts that went on the market at the time where women's hair was going very long. Or a self-heating can for hikers who camp in the woods. The problem was the self-heating can weighed so much that you couldn't carry it in a backpack. All great features, but not what customers want. So I'm sorry if that did not happen. What I can do is allow you to go to the Juran website. We have all the quality minutes, about 100 of them out there now for you guys for free. They're also on YouTube. So if you don't start to move from customer satisfaction to customer experience, if you don't move your performance excellence program from cost reductions only into improving the customer experience, you'll probably need to give us a call. We do provide these services, and we can help you out. And what you don't want to become is a research worst practice, and you end up in one of our books, so please be careful with it. We'd love to see you guys become great organizations. We provide these webinars so that you could do that.